All right. Hello there. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us here on Overflow. We hope that you're having a good day so far. We hope that you're having a good week so far, whether you're joining us live or you're joining us in person. I'm sorry, joining us on the recording. Thanks so much for being here. As always, our focus on Overflow is to get the opportunity to process the sermon from the day before and to really try to talk about how we're practically engaging in these practices in order to be more faithful followers of Jesus. And so, super glad that you're here. As always, if you are joining us live, we'd love to hear your comments and we'd love for you to just say hi. And you can comment too if you're watching later. That's fine too. But today we have, I guess, both Pastor Ryans, right?
Ryan squared.
Ryan squared. And so the others, I think they said they're going to Hawaii or something today. I don't know. No. But it's just us for today, but we're super glad to be here. And it's very windy outside. I just want to say that. It's incredibly windy. So, but we're staying safe inside, which is good. Hopefully all is well. Let me give us a little recap of the sermon from yesterday, and then we're going to jump into our life group questions. So if you want to follow along, you can go for it. So basically, our sermon from yesterday, we walked through Luke chapter 6, verses 12 through 19. And it's a story where Jesus is praying on the mountainside to God the Father all night long. And he's taking time to discuss and share and listen and connect with God personally that way. And then he comes down a little ways from the mountainside to a gathering of his followers, his disciples, and he chooses 12 of them to officially be apostles or representatives of his good news and of the kingdom of God advancing. And then they ascend together or descend. I forget which is which. They descend together down to the plain, the flat area where there are many, many more disciples and followers, and then crowds of people from all sorts of regions all over. And so the emphasis of the sermon was to look at the three dimensions of relationship that Jesus has. He has a close personal relationship with God the Father. He has a relationship with an intentional 12 in his community, a close-knit group that are going to do life together, share life, be there for each other, support each other, encourage each other. He's teaching them, developing, they're sharing meals together, living together many, many days at a time. And then Jesus is intentionally reaching out to the crowds, to the masses, those not yet following him, those interested in him. And basically how in order for us to be followers of Jesus, we need to engage in the same three dimensions: a personal, intimate relationship with God the Father, a close-knit group of Christian community for accountability and support, and then intentionally reaching out beyond our Christian community to share Jesus with others. We finished the sermon by giving a challenge for unity in this politically polarized climate and encourage people to be united by following Jesus together above any political view, claim, perspective, social view, or anything like that. And so that was that. If you haven't been able to check it out, definitely go check it out. But today's questions, we're going to reflect on these three things. But before we jump in, the icebreaker question for the day is what is a favorite Halloween memory? So, Ryan, off the top of your head, do you have any favorite Halloween memories or something come to mind?
Oh man. I don't know if I have like one specific memory. I mean, I remember, I always loved walking around the neighborhood, and me and the neighbor kids, we'd group up together and, hit all the houses, and we'd try to hit multiple blocks to get as much candy as we possibly could. I have a massive sweet tooth, so it was always like my favorite. Like, being able to just load up I think one year I think I like loaded up my bucket completely full, went home, dumped it in my room, went back outside and kept going, you know.
The reload, that's epic. That's so epic.
So that's a great Halloween memory. And just yeah, I miss those days. It was fun being a kid and being able to just, go to people's houses and do that together.
Yeah, that's why you got to have kids now, because you get to trick or treat again. I don't just take the kids trick or treating. Like,
Mhm.
I got my own bag too. I got a costume too. Like, we're collecting. So COVID's gonna look different this year, but
This 30-something-year-old man wants some candy. All right.
Yeah, sometimes people look at me like, why are you here? Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, my favorite two, I always got to do multiple because that's how I am. But number one would be one year I was Batman and my little brother was Robin. And we went up to a house and the person opened the door and she was like, oh, you're my favorite. This is amazing. Oh, we have something for you. We have something for you. And she like ran to the back of the house and then like ran back with like this 3 pound like Hershey's bar. She's like, this is for our favorite costume of the night. This is for you. And I was just like,
Wow.
I feel so special. Like I still remember that to this day. Like I felt so, so special.
That's
My
really
my other memory was um, coming back home from trick or treating. We saw all these smashed pumpkins like in the street, and then we saw this like group of guys who were like running up to houses, grabbing pumpkins and like throwing them in the street. And then as we got close to our house, we saw them run up to our house and grab pumpkins and throw them in the street. And we ran up, and my brother was just crying. He was just so upset that like his pumpkin he worked so hard on got smashed. My mom was like, we're gonna get these beep, fill in the blank. So my mom, did what any good mom would do. She went to the fridge and grabbed a carton of eggs, and we got in the car and we like took off following the pumpkin trail, and we eventually like caught up to them. And my mom just says, give me an egg. And she grabs an egg, rolls down the window, and throws it towards them as hard as she can. Just as she threw it, a car passed by and she egged the car. And this poor lady pulls over and she's like, why would you do that to me? What did I do to you? And my mom's like, I'm sorry, it was an accident. I'm sorry.
really.
I was like, Mom, you can't throw. Like, I was a baseball pitcher at the time. And so I was like, Mom, I'm a pitcher. Like, let me hit these guys. So they went out of this neighborhood and they went around, and we were going down this main street. It's like 45 is like the speed limit. And we saw they were crossing the crosswalk at that time. So my mom speeds up, like we're going like 50 or 55. I lean out the window, I grab an egg and I throw it as hard as I could. And it hits one of the dudes in the back of the leg where he had like shorts on. And if we're going like 55, plus even if I just threw it 20 or 30 miles an hour, like that egg must have hit that dude hard. That was a victory for us that Halloween. But I would never do anything like that now as a pastor.
Back in your heathen days.
Yes. I was just trying to obey, honor your father and mother. My mom's, said, let's egg this guy. So,
Just following orders.
yeah. Okay. Anyways, now that half our time's gone to this crazy stories, let's talk about the sermon. So this week we focused on the 3 dimensions of relational engagement. And so let's talk about, what does a personal, deep relationship with God look like for you? How do you engage with God? What do you do? And maybe even what are some ways that you can grow in that?
Yeah, I'll go first. I think a deep personal relationship with God is difficult. I think it's difficult for everyone. I think everyone listening, even if you're in a really good place spiritually right now, you can think of phases of your faith where it's been difficult, because sometimes it just feels dry, or it's hard to connect, or you're just going through a lot of things that are keeping you distracted and busy. So I think that part of a deep relationship with God for anyone is going to include some dry seasons where it's hard, but I think it's about persevering through those seasons and staying in the Word and staying with your regular spiritual disciplines and spiritual habits. And I know that for me, often when I feel the driest is when I know I need to read the Bible and spend time in prayer the most. And doing that, I try to do that on a daily basis. I'm often successful, sometimes, not as successful, even as pastor. I think that also, though, for me, another element of deep personal relationship with God is pausing in the moment. For me, because I can get frustrated very easily. I know my wife can tell anyone all about that. But I can get frustrated very easily. But whenever I have like really strong negative emotional reaction to something, I try to use that as like an alarm and stop and say, okay, how does God want me to respond in this situation? Sometimes that works, sometimes that doesn't. But I think I think that's having like a prayerful attitude in terms of like, okay, pause. God, what do you want me to do? That goes beyond just, oh, I'm praying on a daily basis, but having a prayerful attitude at all times, trying to think about how does God want me to respond in these situations where I know it's hard to respond how God wants me to respond. Um, so I think those are all things that contribute to a deep personal relationship with God. I think there's always room for growth. I think there are definitely times where I could be more consistent and not let myself get as busy or distracted as sometimes I can get. And so, yeah, what about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I think the basics of the foundation are definitely time in the Word, time in prayer, and really just like dialogue and conversation. And I think, there's just so many similarities in our relationship with God as in like our relationship with other people. Number one, relationships take time, like they're not immediate. um, I think I have memories from when I was a young kid of like talking to God. I've got times where I've prayed for things or I've said things and I've seen those things answered very quickly. And it's like, well, God, like you're listening. Like, whoa, that's crazy, you know? And so I think that, oh, sorry, 1 second. I think we have a gardener coming through. Let me just close the door real quick.
All right. Hello, everyone. I know that Ryan Clement has lots of great things he's about to continue sharing with us. All right, he's back.
It was like a cliffhanger moment.
I
Um,
tried to fill it. I did my best.
like Ryan Clement will be back soon for
Yeah.
great things. I like that.
Stay tuned.
So, good relationships take time. I think about my relationship with my wife, for example.
Mhm.
As much as when we first met, there's definitely some chemistry there and we became good friends. It's taken years and over a decade of knowing her to have the depth of relationship and experiences that we have together. And so a close relationship with God is not about a week or a moment of like, yeah, I prayed a lot this week. But it's about doing that over the long term, over the weeks, the months, the years, in every season, and in the really hard seasons going through things together and the really good seasons going through things together. I think that uh, I definitely feel like there's a close relationship when it feels reciprocated in the sense of where I'm praying for something and I see God respond or give an answer, or when I'm listening and I feel like God's speaking to me about something and I go and do that, and then I see a result or a fruitfulness that produces this two-way mentality. It doesn't just feel like this God in the sky out there. Hopefully he hears my distress signals. And so I think dialogue is really important. You talked a little bit about, Ryan, kind of that back and forth, and getting to connect and share. And I think going through experiences together is really important. Being in prayer in every season and dialoguing, when things are really tough and when things are really great, and going through things together. I often pray with God and I'll say, like, we've been through a lot together, and it really feels that way because I am intentional to share in what I'm experiencing at work, what I'm experiencing in my marriage, with my family, with my kids, my emotional state, my physical well-being, my accomplishments, what I'm failing at. Like, I just want to talk and share all of these things with God. And I think that helps to build that. And so regular, intentional engagement that's both sharing and listening, I think, have all really contributed to feeling like I have a close personal relationship with God. And if I stop doing those things, it's easy for me to feel very disconnected and to feel like, God, where are you? And what's going on? And I just don't know anymore. And that's all normal and that's all natural. But God's so faithful. He never bails on us. And so all we have to do is, in whatever season we're in, just continue to press in, and God renews us and refreshes us. And if I'm coming off of like, it's been a month since I've read my Bible and it's like, I don't know what I'm doing, the first week of getting back into reading my Bible, it still feels dry. It still feels disconnected, but it's like day 8 usually for me, where it's like, okay, this is okay, God. Okay, we're getting connected again, and so I think that's really important. Perseverance and not expecting immediate results, are all really important things.
Mhm.
Okay, should we jump to the next one?
Yeah.
Okay. Who would you consider to be your Christian community? How do you provide support, encouragement, and accountability? So, who would you say is in that close Christian community for you right now?
I mean, I would say it's different people in different ways. I'd say the first thing I'd say is both my life group, which you are in as well, and the people in my life group, the other young married couples, and also my youth leaders as well in a different way, which is a lot of mostly people younger than me, college students, who I'm more of a mentor figure towards overall. But I share a lot of deep things with both, and we hear a lot of things talked about with both. And I know that like it's so good in our life group, for example, hearing people tell stories of things that are going on in their life, or things that have happened in their path, and a really cool testimony. Like just this last Thursday, one of the women in our life group who works at the preschool shared about a big part of her story and how she came to new life. That was really powerful, and we talked about the different ways God brought each of us as an individual and as a couple to new life, and how that's been part of our journey. And that's really awesome to have, and telling those kind of stories together. And I think you feel that connection, you feel that encouragement in that. So I think there's a lot of powerful things in that. I also think, with just really close friends that I have, and being able to share the deeper things and challenging things, and where maybe my marriage has been hard at different points over the last 2 years of my marriage, or points where my job has been hard the last 2 weeks of our marriage, 2 years period of of life. um, just being able to talk through the deeper things. And then, when, for example, for my youth leaders, I'd say more of them coming to me with things that they're going through, or an issue they face with like a student they need advice on. I'm able to provide that support. I'm able to give advice and insight. I'm able to just, do my best to be there for them, and to care for them during those times. Um, so I think it's a lot of people, but I think it's just really important that you're in regular community, in something like a life group, something like that. Doesn't have to literally be a life group, but it can be, and life groups are great. But having people you're regularly talking to, being able to share things that you're going through in life with, um, and therefore you're able to encourage each other as Christians, and as individuals to follow Jesus and be the best people that you can be. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think, as I think about my community, it's definitely in some ways it's always changing, different seasons of life, different geographical locations, different homes and things like that. But yeah, our life group is definitely a big part of that. And then not just our group gathered all together, but the relationships I have with everyone in the group, even just beyond a regular meeting time. I've got some friends from high school and college and just different seasons of my life that I try to be intentional to still connect with and still be present for. I think probably one of the most consistent themes is that none of this is accidental. Like none of this, I've just fallen into this group of people that like without any effort, it's just all amazing. We've been intentional to get together and intentional to stay together and I'm intentional to do lunches beyond just the group time and share life and connect and try to pray and be present and encourage and challenge and call out and to try to do life together throughout the week. I try to be intentional. So I'm dropping my kids off at preschool. If I see someone, to connect with them and talk with them and just take some time if I'm able to, or as I'm going about my daily life. And so I think the thing for me about community is it might start with what feels like a natural spark, like, oh, hey, I met this person and they seem pretty cool. And oh, yeah, we should get together or do something. But to really be like a supporting community together, it takes intentionality, especially during COVID. Our life group couldn't really meet on person, or in person. So we're trying to do the Zoom thing, and we weren't hanging out all the time together. So we're trying to reach out and do group texts and trying to find ways to get together. And we've done some parking lot Chick-fil-A to go takeout things, or we're all super distant, or church outdoor stuff, trying our best to find ways to still connect and be there for each other, even in, the current pandemic and all that's going on. And so, but definitely in different seasons of my life, I've had different community. In college, it just felt a lot easier. There's just a lot of people around, same life stage, ready to be in community together. And a season with young kids, it feels like it's very difficult to find time for myself ever. And so I think this community thing is going to look different based on your life stage as well. But it's helpful even to just get around other people in similar life stages to just process things with. If I can get together with other families with kids, or young couples, and just let the kids run around and play, it just gives us a chance to at least be together in this season. And I think that's life-giving for sure. So yeah, I don't even know how to be a Christian without having like close Christian friends to be there together with and support.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just feels so dry in those seasons that I've had that as a significant absence.
Yeah, and I think we did the One Another series a few months ago in like May or whenever it was, and one of the things about the One Another is if you're not in regular Christian community and talks about loving your brothers and sisters in Christ, one another, and doing all these one another things for each other, how can you do that if you're not in Christian community? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like, it's kind of essential to follow our calling as a Christian, what we're commanded and how we're called to live in scripture is we have to be in Christian community. And that goes beyond just showing up to church. If you just show up to church and go home and you don't talk to or invest or do anything beyond that, I think God calls us to more than that, is what I would say.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the last one here of this 3 dimensions, and that's who's outside of your Christian community that you're trying to engage with or reach out to, or that you could engage with or reach out to.
Yeah. So what I will say is that there's a little bit of a trap in this question. And I have fallen into this trap at least a little bit myself. And that trap is the more someone invests in the church, the more someone volunteers at events of the church, or goes to events of the church or goes to the Christian preschool, New Life preschool, or whatever, goes to a Christian school, the more we tend to just interact with other Christians and the less we tend to interact with people who aren't Christians,
Yeah.
And I think that I've fallen into that trap in ways because I feel like for this question for me, I feel like I definitely have it with people I've been friends with for longer. Like I have friends since high school who I'm friends with, and they've, maybe were Christian in high school and they've fallen out of the faith, or they never really were a Christian high school or at all. And they know I'm a pastor, and I do try to like represent Christ to them because I'm still in contact with them. I still keep up with a good amount of my friends from high school and stuff. And in those deeper, relationships that go back further, I've tried to really impact them, and I am engaged with them. And I'm personally someone who really values deeper relationships. So, anyways, in all of that, I feel like I am those are the people outside of my Christian community that I'm engaged with and impacting. But as far as people on a regular basis who are like outside of friends that go way back, I don't have much. I don't have many people or names I could answer with this, other than there's some people who have maybe hung out with me and some youth leaders who are friends of the youth leaders, and they don't go to church anymore, and where they're at in their faith is kind of wishy-washy or gray, or maybe not at all a Christian. But beyond that, I don't have much of an answer. So I think I have fallen in this trap at least a little bit in my own life. So, and that's a trap, I'd say, for those of you listening. It's like, think about like who outside of the church and outside of the faith am I interacting with and impacting? And I think it sometimes, especially the more invested you get in church or Christian school or Christian community, then the more intentional you have to be to not fall into that trap. So those are my thoughts in regards to that question. What about you, Ryan? Has that ever happened to you, do you think?
Yeah, I think, what you're getting at is when all of your like spheres of influence and all of your circles, social circles become Christian or Christ-centric or Christian focused, it's easy to lose that. When I first really committed my life to Jesus as a senior in high school and freshman in college, uh, I was friends with just a ton of different people, probably most who weren't Christian, but as I got more invested in church and I got more connected, and I remember in college, it was like, I'm a part of a Christian club at school. All my roommates are all Christians because we're trying to have like a Christian house together. We can grow in faith together. Everyone I'm going to church with, and these are all my friends, and this is who I'm hanging out with. And so it was like most of my circles were Christian, but I was also like in the film program. Most of the people in the film program were not Christian, and were very intentional to make that very known. And so I did have some people there that I could connect with. But really what it comes down to is, today I work at a church, I pastor a church. My friends are those who mostly go to this church. All of my circles of social engagement are all in Christian environments. And so I'm not going to connect with people who are not Christian unless I'm intentional to either A, go out of my way, or B, be involved with things where there are people who are not necessarily Christian. And so for some seasons, like when the kids were young, it was like it's just like it's tough to do much beyond just trying to stay alive. But in this season, it's like I try to be a good neighbor. We live in kind of like a condo kind of setup, and been here about 4 years, and I'd say I know at least 20 of my neighbors, by name, most of them by name, but at least try to connect with them or say hi, support and help. I got a text from one of my neighbors the other day who was like, "How's my favorite neighbor doing?" And she always calls me her favorite neighbor, and I just think that that's so sweet. Um, but try to be a good neighbor. When Judea was playing baseball, how do I not just show up and for him to be on the baseball team, but how do I get to know some of the other parents there and just be a godly example? We've been wanting to do some serving as a family now that the twins are getting older. We're still just waiting for some safe options for that. But what can we do to go out of our way to serve and care for people? And so those are the two things that we're working on. But I agree with you, Ryan, that this requires the most effort to do in this season, because I don't necessarily rub shoulders on the daily with coworkers or teammates or whatever it is who are not Christians. That's just the environment I have. But that just means I need to be even more intentional to go out of my way, and just to be loving and kind to people who don't yet know Jesus. So some things I really want to do. I want to serve together as a family, food distribution, Long Beach Rescue Mission, just caring for some of the homeless on our riverbeds, things like that. I want to do some of these things as COVID starts to come down. And I just want to be, a godly representative to our neighbors, my son's teammates and their families, or just anyone like that. So, but I definitely would say if I were to score myself, I'm probably lowest in this category currently, for sure.
I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Not for you.
I would agree that, Ryan,
you're so low. Your score is terrible, Ryan. No, I'm just kidding.
But I wonder for those watching this, what are your dynamics? Are you in a place where most of the people you interact with are not Christian? Are you in a place where most people you do interact with are Christian? And I think everyone's just got some different environments for sure. But the church messes this up. Christians mess this up when we look at Christian community not just as important, but like as our only way, and we detach from non-Christians, but we need to be engaged with people for sure.
Yeah. And I would say this category, I think many people would probably say for them. I would say, for those who don't work in a Christian environment, obviously representing Christ to your coworkers and using that to have an impact on people is a great opportunity and place to do that. But for those, let's say, if you're work at the preschool here at New Life, and in a more Christian environment, like, you're gonna have to be really intentional. You have to really go out of your way to impact people. Maybe it's just reaching out to neighbors and trying to have an impact there. But I think we are called to make disciples of all nations and to call people to meet, to learn who Jesus is, and it goes beyond just being in Christian community. I think we're called to reach out and to try and evangelize and impact others in that way. Not that, I'm not, I'm definitely anti going out to, the street and holding a sign that says, turn, you're going to burn in hell. I'm not saying to go do that, but, because I think the best way this happens is through relationship and through representing Christ in relationship, not through holding a sign, even if it's a good sign. It's just, I think people are more impacted by when they see it for themselves, they experience it for themselves from you as the Christian. So
Yeah. Yeah. One of my favorite compliments in my life has been, that whole church and Christian stuff. Like, I don't know about that. Like, I'm not into that. Like, I see the way that those people are, but how you are, like, I really like you, and I like how you live, and I like how you treat people, and you're a Christian. So, like, I'd be down for that, but not like what other people are doing, and it's like, that just shows you that people experiencing God through relationship and someone treating them really well is much more powerful than people being mistreated by people that they don't know.
hmm And one thing I'll say about that is, in one of my classes when I was a ministry student at APU, um, we read a book that talked about the different stages of evangelism, because sometimes we fall into the trap of only thinking about evangelism as, oh man, I got them to pray the sinner's prayer and confess their sins and then accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. That's evangelism. But Ryan, I think what you just talked about is often what's the first seed or first step of evangelism. You planted the first seed in that. This person had this really negative conception of who Christians were and what church is in their mind, and then they met you. And did this person know you were a pastor at this time?
No. Yeah,
Okay, but they knew you were like church and Christian and
for sure. Yeah. Well, they got to know that over time. Yeah.
right. So you planted that first seed of, oh, I have this really negative perception of Christianity, what religion's about. But now that I've met Ryan Clement, that's been dislodged or somewhat upset, and like, sure, I'm not completely, I still have some of that negative stereotype based on their own experience or whatever, but now they've seen another side of it. So now they're maybe more open to it in the future. And that's like the first step of evangelism towards getting someone to open their heart, is they need to see it first and see it from someone, see something that is desirable, and maybe you planted the seed, God's watering it, and a few years down the road, they become a Christian because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it really is like, I reject the notion that all evangelism happens only when they make a decision in that moment. Like, I think, there's so much evangelism and like turning people towards Jesus slowly that can need to happen, because that person's probably, I think Jesus himself could have walked up and said the best sermon ever or said the best thing ever to them, and that person might not have been, probably wouldn't have opened their heart because they already were where they were at, in negativity towards Christianity / the church. So it takes those steps to loosen them up, to get them to the point where they might be willing to therefore then accept Jesus into their heart. So
For sure.
I think that's the start of evangelism right there for step one.
Yeah, look at that. And the other thing I want to acknowledge, I think for some of us, we work in a workplace that feels very anti-Christian, and it feels very against Christian values. And I know I've worked in some environments where it just felt like no one here believes what I believe. Everyone here acts and talks like they do things that I would definitely never participate in. And I either function like I'm in opposition to everyone's life choices, or I kind of like go with the flow. And so I think some people might be feeling like, how do I live as like the light that Jesus is in this environment that just feels totally against everything I believe? And it's really difficult. And I think it's tough to represent Christ in those environments where you feel like a significant minority. But at the same time, it's a very powerful statement for people to be able to see, like, you don't talk about people the way we do, or you don't treat people the way we do. Like, you're different. Like, why do you do that? Or how do you do that? But to stand up as a significant example and to be faithful to that. And I think some people just need to hear that living in a God honoring way, even in the most unchristian environments, is a powerful testimony. And to not just follow along with what everyone else is doing or how other people are doing it, but to live God honoring, righteous way in all that we do and in all that how we do our work and school and all that we're doing, even when everyone else is cheating on the test, to make sure we're not doing that, even when everyone else in the business kind of cheats this or like exaggerates that or steals from this, we don't do that. But to live like above reproach and to be God honoring in all that we do, I think is a powerful testimony.
Amen. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. But thank you so much for joining us on Overflow. Hope it's been a blessing. Hope it's been helpful and encouraging. And we will catch you next Monday at noon.
All right. See you.